Hey everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us. Today we've got a brand new story to share with you. So let's begin. It was a sad day indeed, a very sad Friday for me. Within a few minutes, I would see if my life had turned into a mess out of my control. The only thing to do for the time being was to wait and see if the expected crap would really happen. However, I wasn't any poor idiot who would mourn and feel sorry for myself. No, I had never forgotten what my old sergeant once, a long time ago, taught me. That action is the best offense. My only choice was to fight for at least saving my honor, even if many other things went to hell. To my advantage, I received some information yesterday that gave me time enough to be well prepared for the events to come. That was the reason I was sitting in a friend's black Peugeot 307, parked in a discreet corner of Motel parking lot. I was told my wife would be here after lunch, and now it was nervously exciting to see if her red Toyota Yaris would arrive. She came and was followed a few seconds later by her real man, in his expensive BMW, which he parked beside my wife's car. He said a few words to her and walked to the registration office. I left my car and walked to my wife's Toyota, opened the door on the passenger side, got in, and sat down in the seat. My totally surprised wife screamed, "You Billy, what in the hell are you doing here?" I gave her a brown envelope and said, "Not much, only giving divorce papers to my cheating soon-to-be ex-wife. Have a great time screwing your noble real man, and feel free to stay here forever." She began screaming, "No, no, no, you are totally wrong. It is not what you think. Let me explain why I'm here and I can promise you. It is not for any cheating. I demanded a divorce and didn't give a shit if she was screwing that worm who just ran away to get the room key to her love nest. Feel free to be his 304, I said. And as I said, I don't give a shit. It was obvious that my once-upon-a-time loving wife had expected this afternoon to be a much more romantic event with her obviously horny lover, because she began to cry loudly. Now her so-called real man was coming back, waving the room key. When he saw Rebecca crying and still sitting in her car, he opened the door on her side and asked, "Who the hell is he? And what has he done to you?" While he was saying that, I got out of the car, took up a small plastic bottle from my pocket, and while rushing over to him, I heard her sob. "He is my husband, and he is going to get both of us divorced for doing this." The lover shouted, "I'll beat that stupid idea out of a damn creep." When the lover turned against me, I aimed at his face, squeezed the bottle containing a mix of water and shampoo, and the resulting water jet against his face blinded him, making him scream with anger. While he was temporarily out of action, it was time for my second weapon, a dart with 3 flukes soldered to the head. I took a quick step, got behind him, and took a hard swing with my right hand, pushing the dart through his pants and underwear deep into his left bottom. Thanks to the barbed tip, it remained stuck and was impossible to withdraw without surgery. My actions were successful, so I left the now obviously unlucky lovers. He had shampoo in his eyes, a dart in his bum, and was swearing like an old harbor worker. My cheating wife was still sitting, loudly crying in her car seat. I rushed to my car and left the motel parking lot without any further problems. Remember what happened later that Friday. One thing was for sure, those lovers would not be in the mood for any romantic sex. The beginning, I'm Billy Svensson, a 37-year-old Scandinavian guy, for the time being married to 36-year-old Rebecca. Our 2 children are Emil, 9, and Estelle, 7. Rebecca and I have been together for 11 years, and married for 10 of that time. We have almost everything couples in our position are dreaming about, so we ought to be very happy. But I regret to say that we are not. In my humble opinion, the main reason for our unhappiness is Rebecca's mother. Though she is not green, doesn't have a tail and doesn't spit fire, she must still be regarded as a genuinely hostile dragon who has never missed a chance to be a pain in the back to me. That began the first time I met her. I was invited for dinner to Rebecca's home. It was more of a cross-examination than a pleasant dinner. After a lot of questions, the dragon said that she didn't like my name because Billy is a Y name, and she didn't like people with Y names. Upper-class families never gave their children such names as Billy, Kenny, Ronnie, Molly, Nellie, Cindy, etc. Thanks for that, I thought. I was surprised when both Rebecca and her obviously spineless idiot of a father remained silent while I was humiliated by the dragon. She continued by saying that Swinson is a typical farmhand name from the days when a son got his father's first name together with son as his last name. Then she went on by saying that she had expected something better for Rebecca since her other daughter, Nellie, was going to marry a fine man from a noble family. I had heard enough, stood up and said, "Isn't that guy's father a creep in some distant branch of that family? And what is he? An unemployed parasite on the social welfare system?" Before somebody replied, I continued, "I need some fresh air. Are you coming with me, Rebecca?" In my great surprise, Rebecca came with me and we left what I regarded as a dragon's nest. I knew Nellie's boyfriend, Alexander, from my school days and wasn't surprised that he, with his conning skills, had gotten Rebecca's weird mother to regard him as a God's gift to Nellie. That was not my business, and why should I care? Of course, I wasn't invited to Nellie and Alexander's big wedding and didn't care a shit about that either. What I cared about was Rebecca in my relationship. That grew better and better until it went too good, resulting in her accidental pregnancy. That got her dragon mother almost spitting fire when she rang me and shouted her opinions about the kind of scumbag I really was in hers and other decent people's opinions. That any kind of wedding at her expense would be out of the question. The Las Cristiano-Scandinavian Church on the Spanish Canary Island, Tenerife, is a very popular place for small-scale weddings. So Rebecca and I went there with our best friend and got married. Both Rebecca and I found fine jobs in a town 210 kilometers away from our hometown, so I had minimal contact with her mother, who spent all her efforts and a lot of money on Nellie and Alexander. The next years were good for Rebecca and me and our 2 children. We made fair money, bought a nice house and made many friends in our new hometown. Our sex life was still on a fair level. Thanks to the distance, I had minimal interactions with Rebecca's family because her parents never visited us. When back in our hometown, I saw my family and Rebecca went to hers. At last, even Alexander had enough of the dragon we shared as his mother-in-law. To everybody's surprise, he had done well at his job and had gladly accepted a promotion that included a transfer to a new location 280 kilometers away. After some arguing with Natalie, he had given her a simple choice: accept the distance or get a divorce. She followed into the new job. Now, the dragon remembered that she had a daughter named Rebecca and began making daily phone calls. After a while, these somehow began to get Rebecca, without any real reason, acting chillier toward me. The calls centered on more nagging about what I did, had not done or ought to do, and even more bullshit about how well everything had gone for Natalie and Alexander. Our relationship didn't get better when I told Rebecca that the main reason for Alexander moving away was to get a far distance from the hostile dragon who was his mother-in-law. An accident never comes alone, and Rebecca's feelings for me got even chillier when a new guy, also from some side branch of a noble family, began at her job. Rather soon, Rebecca began describing him as some kind of a Superman, or at least a real man. He was married to a nurse, but his wife was in Tanzania, Africa, volunteering as a nurse at some medical aid center, and still had about 3 months left on her tour. The real man and his wife intended to buy a house when she was back. But in the meantime, he was living in our town, renting a room at his wife's married sister's house. Rebecca got me really fed up when she compared my doings, my vocabulary, and even my clothes with that real man at her job. There's no need to say who the winner ended up being in those comparisons. Though Rebecca and I still had sex, my attempts were often met with comments such as, "Now again, and don't you ever get enough?" If it hadn't been for our children and for Rebecca's many good sides, I would have dumped her a long time ago. But she was obviously faithful, a good mother, keen with cooking, kept herself in nice shape, and we worked well together, keeping the house clean and a nice garden. If she had not started her nagging and all her other sour comments to me, she would still have been my dream wife. Of course, I wasn't an idiot who took all her crap without telling her my opinion. 2. That increased our problems just like one evening after our children were sleeping. Rebecca said, "I really wish you could be more like my coworker. If you are in love with that conning faggot, why don't you file for divorce and be free to be his 304? But as long as we are married, I will never accept any cheating." Screw that asshole behind my back and be sure that I will teach him that though you may act as a cheap 304, your services will have a high price tag. Rebecca began screaming hysterically, "You simple scumbucket. What in the hell did you just say about me? How do you call me a whore? Be sure that you will pay for that. Isn't it better that your customers have to pay?" I shouted back. Before she could make a nasty reply, two scared and crying children came to us, and I began doing my best to calm them down. 2 very chilly weeks followed after her outburst. The first weekend, she and our children went to see her parents, and then the next weekend when Natalie and Alexander came to see us. Rebecca played the good wife and was nice to me until our guests left on Sunday morning. When we waved goodbye to them, she said, "Don't be stupid enough to expect any favors from me." Next Thursday, the shit hit the fan when one of Rebecca's female coworkers called me at my job, and, after a short introduction, went straight to the problem. She said, "We have a new, very charming guy here at work, and there are 3 female coworkers who have been competing to seduce him, your wife, me, and one more single girl. Although we begged your wife to skip this, since she's already married to a good man, she refused to listen to us. And now she is proud as hell and bragging about being the winner of our competition and going to the motel with him tomorrow after lunch." I thanked her and persuaded her to keep the call a secret so I could do something about our problem. Back home after the job, I watched for Rebecca and got the feeling that she was slightly jollier than usual. After the phone call, I started thinking about what the old sergeant said during my Army service. He had been a great admirer of the Apache warriors in the old Arizona Territory in their tactics of surprise, hit, and then disappear. I had no experience with street fighting, so my only chance to win was to do just as those old warriors had done. Rebecca had bragged to me about the real man's black belt in some Japanese fighting sport, so the surprise element was very important. Pepper spray would have been great, but that is forbidden and not available in this country, so I had to find a simple alternative. A small plastic bottle with hair shampoo and water would be my weapon, and it worked well after a painful testing in my own eyes. The sergeant told us a lot about how surprisingly effective the silent arrows, with barbed heads from a well-hidden ambush, had been at creating fear among soldiers during the frontier wars in Arizona. Of course, I could not use a bow and arrows against Rebecca's lover, but the idea got me to my small workshop in the basement. I took the closest thing that was available, a dart. By soldering 3.1 centimeters long pieces of sewing needles and small angles around the tip of the dart, I made a barb tip. Hopefully, it would be difficult to remove from some soft body part without surgery in a hospital. There was no chance or interest in testing that weapon on myself. After some thinking, I had a simple plan without any need to buy complicated equipment for my action. Divorce papers given to Rebecca and her lover blinded for a few seconds would give me time to push the barbed dart into his bottom. I doubted that he would remain interested in sex with my 304 wife, at least not while he had that dart in his ass. The next morning, Rebecca dressed in a rather sexy dress. But I pretended not to see anything strange with that and avoided all comments. Both of us acted as usual for a Friday morning. At my job, I exchanged cars for the day with my fellow worker and good friend Eric. We did that often when he needed my Volvo V70 instead of his own smaller Peugeot 307. During the morning, I went to the courthouse for the divorce forms and filled one out at my office. After some searching, I succeeded in connecting to the main office for the aid organization in Tanzania and got the email address for Rebecca's lover's wife there. I took off at lunchtime and went to Rebecca's job and found that both she and Loverboy's car were still in the parking lot. Obviously, they had lunch at the nearby restaurant before going to the motel. So, I bought a couple of hot dogs and went to the motel to wait for them. As you already know, the lovers came to the motel and my actions went just as planned. So, my time in the Army hadn't been totally wasted and I felt grateful to the old sergeant there. At 3:30, my home phone rang. It was the same female voice that told me yesterday about Rebecca going to the motel. She asked, "Did you go to the motel today? Did you see what you expected to see? Thanks for calling." Yes, I went there, but your coworkers weren't happy to see me. I tried to cheer up my wife with some divorce papers, but that gift didn't make her happier. The man threatened to hit me, so I had to defend myself and he got some damage to his bottom. I presume my wife must have taken him to the hospital. It was not much of a romantic date, at least not in my opinion, I told her. Is that really true? Oh yes, it is. I have no reason to lie to you. My wife isn't home yet, but feel free to call her cell phone and ask her. Of course, I can't guarantee that she will tell you the whole truth, I said. Vinci, whoever she was, thanked me and asked for Rebecca's cell phone number, which I gave her. Hopefully they had a pleasant chat. After that, I sent an email to the real man's wife in Africa and explained the whole situation. Rebecca was back home by 4 o'clock, and it was clearly visible that she wasn't happy at all. She stared at me and said, "We have to talk. And do it now at once." No problem for me. You and your lover boy got what you wanted. And you must have been totally insane if you expected me to be a poor idiot, taking the humiliation you and your so-called real man intended to give me. No way, Rebecca. I'll never take such crap without fighting for my pride, I replied. Though he had not done you any harm, you hurt him so badly that I had to take him to the emergency room at the hospital. Be sure you will have to pay for that. Actually, we are 4 adults and 2 children sharing the bill for what you and that creep did. You can't be serious if you think that the poor nurse in Africa is happy after she received my email with the information about you and her husband. Now she knows what a shameless cheating creep she married and trusted. She shouted, "Did you really do such a nasty thing to his innocent wife?" "When threatening me with divorce was a very nasty thing to do," I replied. "I haven't threatened you with anything. Just sign the divorce papers and you'll get fair terms to be a free woman in 6 months. Refusing to sign and going to a lawyer will cost you a lot, and you will still end up with the same terms in the end," I said. Now she understood that I was serious and began sobbing. "Oh my God, are you really serious? Please listen to me, for heaven's sake. I haven't done anything wrong." "Yes, you have. By joining your imbecilic mother's vendetta against me without any real reason, only because I don't have an upper-class name, you let her persuade you to be a nagging witch to me. You were in love with a coworker that you regard as my superior in all matters, based on what you have always told me. Then I found out that you have been competing with 2 single coworkers to get a date with this so-called real man. When you won that stupid game, you left the job early today, driving to a motel to collect your prize, and that meant cheating on me by screwing a married man. You know my opinion about cheating, so there can't be any doubt about these consequences." She continued sobbing. "I didn't cheat on you. Neither today nor ever before. That's for sure. And you are the only man I love. Have you forgotten that we have 2 children? What about them? Our children are the only reason that your nagging bum wasn't kicked out a long time ago. I've heard day in and day out about all my faults according to your mother's opinion, and from your own opinion of how damn worthless I am compared to that defenseless creep of a real man. Dated at the motel and obviously in love. I'm humiliated by your cheating attempt and fed up with all the other crap you were always throwing at me." After a while, she understood that the game was over, and we began to negotiate the divorce. Rebecca signed the papers after I had agreed that we both should continue living in our house and wouldn't date anybody else during those 6 months until the divorce was final. 6 weeks after my actions to stop Rebecca's cheating attempt, strange things happened in what was left of my marriage. I discovered a good wife, a very good wife indeed. Rebecca had turned into a totally different woman, who's obviously forgotten how completely worthless I was just a few weeks ago. Rebecca and I are polite to each other and doing much more together now than we did during the several months before our problems were out in the daylight. Of course, we are not sharing a bed or a bedroom any longer. To be honest, I don't miss those mercy quickies she gave me during those several months before her cheating attempt. It sounds silly, but I must believe her when she says she never had sex with her real man. The date at the motel was intended to be the beginning of their love story with some sex now and then. The real man's wife demanded that he come to Tanzania to work for free at the aid camp until her own contract expired. He went there to save his marriage, and his wife sent me an email saying that he is doing well and that she has forgiven him. She even begged me to forgive Rebecca, but I don't know what to do because we still have at least 20 weeks of thinking time left before our divorce is finalized. However, it will be interesting to see if Rebecca is serious with her good wife campaign and how long she might be able to go on with that. It may help if a certain dragon remains submerged in the depths of Loch Ness, Lake Champlain, or just in her nest. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories like this. See you next time.